On this day in 1966, young army officers in the very early hours of that day in 4 major regional cities across Nigeria simultaneously staged a bloody military rebellion, effectively putting an end to Nigeria's First Republic. The revolution led to the killings of several high-ranking political and military figures across the country. The head of the army, Major General Johnson Agui Ironsi, foiled the plot and later took over the reins of government same day. The names of the original ringleaders started filtering in within military circles later same day, and it was revealed that Majors Emmanuel Ifeajuna, Chukwuma Nzeogwu, Christian Anuforo, Adewale Ademoyega, and Donatus Okafor were the ringleaders. Others were Majors Chudi Sokei, Humphrey Chukwuka, Timothy Onwantwegbu, John Obienu. Captains Ogbonaya Orji, Ben Gabuli, and Emmanuel Nwobosi. The immediate reason for the coup was the First Republic Operation Weti in 1965. There were widespread looting, murder and arson as political opponents and supporters of political parties were burnt alive as the Balewa central government openly took side. The West, which had been the pride of the nation in terms of development, was now a political war zone where thugs and street urchins engaged in wanton killings and destruction of properties. The event came to be known as Operation Weti, and the Western region was nicknamed the Wild Wild West. Other reasons were the kangaroo trial of Chief Obafemi Awolowo earlier in 1963, which led to him being imprisoned alongside others, the controversial 1962 census, the national government's Northern People's Congress, NPC, and its coalition partner, the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, NCNC's brutal repression of riots by the TIV in 1964 over the arrest and detention of Joseph Tarka, leader of the United Middle Belt Congress, UMBC, on treason charges. In what is today known as the Joseph Tarka Uprising, national government ordered the senseless killing of its citizens in the TIV area. Other reasons include gross misappropriation of funds, falsified election results both at the federal elections and regional elections, sectionalism, nepotism, and other sundry issues that bedeviled the growth of Nigeria's nascent democracy. The coup is executed at regional levels. Lagos operations. The Lagos operations were led by Major Emmanuel Ifeajuna, Brigadier General Zakaria Maimalari, and was reported in several quarters to have personally gunned down Brigadier Maimalari in the morning of the coup, as well as being a degree holder having graduated from the prestigious University College in Ibadan before his military career. Major Ifeajuna had been an international athlete who held the Commonwealth high jump record. He became very popular after his high jump prowess at the 1954 Games of British Commonwealth Empire in Vancouver, Canada, was where he won Africa's first gold medal in an international competition outside of the African continent. The key officers assisting Major Ifeajuna in Lagos were Majors Adewale Ademoyega, Donatus Okafor, Chris Anuforo, and Humphrey Chukwuka. Majors Chukwuka and Anuforo were to arrest certain politicians and high-ranking military officers, while Okafor was to arrest the general officer commanding the Nigerian army as well as the Prime Minister of the Federation. Major Ademoyega was to make the early morning nationwide broadcast in Radio Nigeria, Lagos. According to a Nigeria Police Special Branch report on the military rebellion of 15th January 1966, particularly on the Lagos operations, the execution of the plan commenced by the calling of a meeting late on 14th January 1966 of the Lagos members of the Inner Circle at Major Ifeajuna's residence in Apapa and, for the first time, of junior officers previously selected to take active part in the rebellion. A number of those present had attended a cocktail party that very evening in the house of Brigadier General Zakaria Maimalari in Ikoyi. On H-hour, problems started for the coupists when officers and men of the Federal Guards Company refused to take command from their commanding officer, Major Okafor. It was later revealed that the GOC, Major General Aguiyi Iromsi, had instructed the officers and men not take orders from Major Okafor. And that was a major blow for the plotters who were aware if they couldn't have command of the Federal Guards Company, the rebellion was as good as dead. One of the plotters, .1 Major John Obienu, was reported to have sold out at the last minute and intimated Major General Ironsi of the entire plot. Major Obienu had developed cold feet, decided to be on Major General Ironsi's good books, and failed to show up on the night of the coup. General Ironsi, who could have averted the plot altogether, failed to do so. He rather allowed the plot to be carried out and placed himself at a vantage position so as to use the situation to his advantage, and that was how everything eventually played out. Regardless of the failure of the Lagos operations to come into fruition, the plotters carried out killings of their targets. Major Christian Anuforo was reported to have shot and killed the Federal Minister of Finance, Chief Festus Okoti Igbo, and his immediate boss at Army headquarters, the Adjutant General of the Nigerian Army, Lieutenant Colonel James Yakubu Pam, and the Quartermaster General of the Nigerian Army, Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Unegbi. Major Ifeanyi murdered the Prime Minister of Nigeria, Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the Chief of Army Staff, Colonel Kur Mohammed, the Commandant 2nd Brigade Headquarters in Lagos, Brigadier General Zakaria Maimalari, and the Commanding Officer 4th Infantry Battalion in Ibadan, Lieutenant Colonel Abargo Larjema, who was Brigadier General Maimalari's guest in Lagos. Colonel Larjema was shot and killed at Ikoyi Hotel. Following the failure of the coup, some members of the Lagos operations were immediately arrested and detained. Major Ifeanyi fled to Ghana, while Major Ademoyega and some other of his men fled to Kaduna, where they teamed up with Major Kaduna Nzeogwu, who recorded a huge success in the north. Western Nigeria operations. The Western Nigeria operations were led by Captain Emmanuel Nwobosi. Captain Nwobosi led a unit of men who included a few lieutenants and second lieutenants, as well as senior non-commissioned officers and junior non-commissioned officers, and carried out his duties with precision. He arrested the regional deputy premier of Western Nigeria, Chief Remi Fani Kayode, and also went to the residence of the premier of Western region, where he was met with opposition as the premier. Chief Ladoke Akintola and some of his men opened fire. Captain Nwobosi was injured in the scuffle, but his men subdued Chief Akintola, who was shot and instantly killed. By the plotters' evaluation, Dotaji, the Western operation, was a success. Captain Nwobosi and his men arrested the rest of their targets in the west and took them into custody. On their way to their final rendezvous in Lagos, not knowing that the coup in Lagos had failed, they were rounded up by Ironsi's men and detained. The Northern Nigeria operations. In the north, the leader of the operations was Major Patrick Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu, a 28-year-old radical ideologue who was the chief instructor of the Nigeria Military Training College in Kaduna. He was a teetotaler and a devout Catholic, reputed to be a very serious-minded, honest and transparent individual with unparalleled bravery. Major Nzeogwu was to be assisted by Major Timothy Onwantwegwu and Captain Ben Gabuli. Since Major Nzeogwu was not in command of troops, he deceived Army headquarters into approving his conceived military exercise codenamed Exercise Damisa, to teach operational troops new night combat techniques. Exercise Damisa in English means Operation Leopard. Since he was an instructor at the NMTC, it wasn't difficult getting approval for the night exercise. After he got approval from AHQ, the brigade major at the 1st Brigade headquarters in Kaduna, Major Alfonso Keshi, absolutely unaware of the true intentions of the exercise, sent circulars to all units under the brigade to send men, ammunition and transport for Major Nzeogwu's exercise, which was believed to be a project of the Nigeria Military Training College in Kaduna. On H hour of the D-Day, all operations were assigned to unit commanders with specific instructions. Meanwhile, hours in the weeks leading up to January 15th, Coup Nzeogwu carried out reconnaissance on the official lodge of the Northern Region Premier, the Sardauna of Sokoto Ahmadu Bello. Until the night of the coup, Nzeogwu's men were unaware that the military exercise they were participating in was actually a practice run for a military coup to overthrow the government. The commander of the 1st Brigade headquarters in Kaduna, Brigadier General Ademulagun, was actually aware of the exercise but became irritated by the nighttime training because of the heavy noise resulting from the use of heavy artillery, which disturbed the peace of the night. He became more concerned when he noticed that soldiers had been going near the Premier's lodge. He had placed a call to Major Nzeogwu and reprimanded him to keep his military exercises a safe distance away from the Premier's lodge. Although Brigadier General Ademulagun complained about the commotion, he took no further action as he was unaware of the exercise's real purpose. Brigadier General Ademulagun was a polished soldier that had been Major General Iransi's rival for the job of General Officer Commanding of the Nigerian Army. Besides troops who were permitted to be part of the exercise from various units across northern Nigeria, Major Nzeogwu had also conscripted young soldiers from the Nigerian Military Training College to carry out the coup in Kaduna. In the early hours of January 15, 1966, Nzeogwu decided to turn exercise Damisa into a full-blown military rebellion. Major Nzeogwu led a group of soldiers into a bush adjacent to the Premier's lodge. Once there, Major Nzeogwu informed the men of their real mission. They were to attack the Premier's lodge. Major Nzeogwu and his men blew open the gates to the Sardauna's lodge, and he personally conducted a search of the residence, hunting for Bello. After losing his temper at his initial failure to locate him, he found Bello hiding amongst his wives. Bello was personally shot by Nzeogwu. Bello's faithful bodyguard who came to defend him with a bow and arrow was also shot, as well as one of his wives who tried to shield him with her body. Nzeogwu was fiercely committed to the coup and was the only one of the coupists able to execute his mission. Major Onwuatuegbu was to effect the arrest of Brigadier General Ademulegun, Colonel Raphael Shodende, the commandant of the Nigeria Defense Academy, and top politicians, particularly the governor of northern Nigeria, Alhaji Sir Kashim Ibrahim. Major Onwuatuegbu, according to reports, killed Brigadier General Ademulegun and Colonel Shodende after the officers resisted arrest. Brigadier General Ademulegun's pregnant wife was also shot and killed in the scuffle. By 4 a.m. in the morning of January 15, 1966, the coup was already an absolute success in Kaduna, and officers and men who effected the change in the north were patiently at this point waiting for the early morning announcement from Radio Nigeria, Lagos, expected to be carried out by Major Adewale Ademoyega. That announcement was never made, as the coup at that point had been crushed in Lagos by reactionary forces unknown to the plotters in Kaduna. Eastern Nigeria Operations. Lieutenant Jerome Oguchi was to lead the operations in the east. The original leader of the Eastern Operations was Major Chudi Soke, but he had to travel overseas for a course just before D-Day. Lieutenant Oguchi was drafted in to take the place of Major Soke, and with the available resources at his disposal, he did his best. On D-Day, when he eventually arrived Enugu, Dr. Michael Okpara, the Premier of Eastern Region, had an august visitor in Archbishop Makarios of Cyprus. Lieutenant Oguchi had to wait for the Cypriot leader to depart Enugu, as he didn't want anything that could stir an international embarrassment, and as soon as that was achieved, he arrested the Premier. On arrival in Lagos, the Premier was freed while Lieutenant Oguchi was taken into custody. There were several other officers of both northern and southern extractions who were conscripted into these operations at the dying minutes. Majority of them were never part of the planning and were not even aware there was a coup until H hour. Aftermath of all operations. Following the failure of the coup in Lagos, Major Kaduna Nzeogwu made an audacious mid-afternoon broadcast on Radio Nigeria Kaduna declaring martial law in the north, following the failure of Major Ademoyega's expected nationwide broadcast from Lagos to hit the airwaves. Major Nzeogwu was livid with anger and started making preparations to attack Lagos and finish the job, but he was advised by certain officers against the move. Major Nzeogwu had also conscripted young soldiers from the Nigerian Military Training College to carry out the coup in Kaduna. Major General Ironsi had to send Colonel Conrad Nwanwo, a man believed to be highly respected by Major Nzeogwu, to come over to Kaduna and negotiate a peaceful handover of the reins of the north to the new regime. After an amicable resolution was reached between Major General Ironsi and Major Nzeogwu, Ironsi announced his cabinet, and Major Nzeogwu handed over the reins of the north to the newly appointed military governor northern Nigeria, Major Hassan Usman Katsina, on 18th of January 1966 in Kaduna, in a short but colorful ceremony. Major Nzeogwu arrived Lagos the following day, but was promptly arrested at the airport and taken into custody at the maximum security prison in Kirikiri. Major Nzeogwu's arrest finally put the 15th January 1966 coup to bed. Major civilian casualties: Alhaji Ati Balawa, Prime Minister of Nigeria, Sir A. Bello, Premier of Northern Region, Chief S. L. Akintola, Premier of Western Region, Chief F. Okoti Ibo, Minister for Finance. Major military casualties: Brigadier Sergeant Ademulegun, Commandant 1st Brigade Headquarters, Brigadier Z. Maimalari, Commandant 2nd Brigade, Column K. Mohammed, Chief of Army Staff, Column R. Shodiende, 2IC Nigeria Defense Academy, Lieutenant Colonel Y. Pam Adjutant General Nigerian Army, Lieutenant Column A. Unegbe, QM General Nigerian Army, Lieutenant Column A. Lajema, CO 4th Battalion Ibadan. Perpetrators: original ringleaders, Major Patrick Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogu, Major Emmanuel Arinze Ifeajuna, Major Christine Anuforo, Major Adewale Ademoyega, Major Donatus Okafor. Others, co-conspirators: Major Chude Soke, Major Humphrey Chukuka, Major Timothy Onwantwegu, Major John Obienu, Captain Ben Gbulie, Captain Emmanuel Nwobosi, Captain Godwin Ude, Lieutenant Jerome Oguchi. There were several other officers of both northern and southern extractions who were conscripted into these operations at the dying minutes. Majority of them were never part of the planning and were not even aware there was a coup until H-hour. There is a misconception in the media that the coup was an Igbo-led coup, but in truth more northern soldiers took part in the period of execution than soldiers from any